Hey everybody, 2023 is in the books and we have some championships amongst us. We're here to celebrate the season that was. Instead of taking a look back at a week by week, we're going to take a look at the whole seasons. We're going to give out our end of the season awards. But before we do, cheers to us. Cheers to you.
Cheers.
I hope you guys brought home some titles just like we did.
Woo!
Woo! All right. So one of my favorite things to do at the end of the year is go back and do a review show or a reward show. And that's exactly what we're going to do. Now, we know fantasy football is not real football. We know it's the game of make-believe, the game of what is, what should be, what could be. But hey, we still love it anyway, right?
Absolutely.
That's why we play. So we've got some different categories here, and we're going to nominate some players. We're going to tell you who our championship or who our winner is for each of these categories, who our champion is. I want you to go down to the comment section. I want you to play along with this because that's half the fun. So for each one of these categories that we're going to give, I want you to go down to the comment section. I want you to let us know who your nominees are. Maybe you agree with us, maybe you don't. And who is your winner for each of these categories. So this would be like our Oscar awards, right? Our ESPYs, or whatever you want to call them.
Yep, yeah. Emmy nominations,
Academy Awards,
exactly.
all that good stuff. So I'm going to name the first category. Now, we've all done this a little bit different. That's what makes this awesome. I've said so many times in fantasy football, everybody comes to the table with their own unique spin on things. And I'm not going to try to convince anybody that they're right or wrong. I am going to justify where I'm coming from. So I'm going to name the first category. And I'm going to give my candidates, and I'm going to let Adam and Theresa give their candidates. They are up here in Indiana with me. I know normally when we get together, I'm down in Ohio with them. They brave the cold to come on up here. By the way, everybody, happy 2023. Happy New Year. Hope it's blessed.
And I do have to say, we didn't get a lick of snow in Cincinnati. You've got yourself a nice little inch and a half in your front yard up here.
Yeah,
so
nice little coating.
You could keep the snow up here. I don't want it down in Cincinnati with us.
You know, funny story, I do apologize for not having posted for a while, but I did spend the holidays with family and friends, and I spent a week down in Florida. I did the best I could to bring that beautiful sunshine and 80-degree temperatures that I was experiencing back with me.
You failed at that.
I had one day. We had one day since I've been back. I've been back for a week. One day where we've had sunshine. That's it. Welcome to the great Northwest Indiana permacloud. So, all right. First category. This is going to be our hero squad. Now, we're not saying that these players are the MVPs. That's its own category later on. We're talking about the players who have helped win championships that we didn't see coming. So, for me anyway, that's how I approached it. So Adam and Theresa, when I approached the hero squad, what I was looking for is, I'm not looking for the Austin Ecklers. I'm not looking for the Patrick Mahomes. I'm not looking for the players who were drafted super early. I'm looking for the players that were values late. So you could call this all kinds of different things. You could call it the hero squad, which is what I do because I incorporated a multitude of things. You could call this the best value in the draft. To me, these are the players that elevated teams to champions that we weren't counting on.
Right.
Okay, you know, if you're taking guys in the first, second, third round, you're counting on those guys to do well. That's why you're taking them as early as you are. These are not those players. So if you're expecting these big fancy names here, I've only got one on my list, and the rest of these guys are not. But that's exactly why. These are the guys that have come from either the middle rounds or the late rounds, the guys that you weren't counting on that way have exceeded expectations, elevated teams, and helped them reach the championship. I've said this many times. You don't ever win the championship at the draft, but you sure can lose it. But I've also said in my videos that if you're going to win, typically you do well in the middle to late rounds because those first round players are all supposed to be good. It's where you start making the discernment between those middle rounds and late rounds. That makes the biggest difference. So what I did for mine, and I don't know what you two did for yours, we're all different, and that's A-okay. That's what makes everybody unique. Otherwise, we're just regurgitating the same thing. That's boring. I came up with 3 candidates per position. I'm going to give you those 3 candidates per position. We're going to talk about it. and then you guys can tell me if you agree, disagree, who you have on your squad. And then at the end, I'm going to give you my winner, and Adam and Theresa are going to give you their winners. Okay? So my hero squad candidates, I'm going to start with quarterbacks. I have 3 quarterbacks. My hero squad, and I'm going to read off my paper, guys. I'm sorry. I know I'm not going to be looking at the camera, but I want to make sure I hit on all of these points because every one of these players I'm coming to you with, there is a reason behind it, and I want to make sure that we're extrapolating on that. I want you to know where I'm coming from because I'm trying to defend my position here. Okay? So 3 candidates starting with quarterbacks. Number 1 quarterback for me for this category is Geno Smith. And the reason that Geno Smith made my list is he was undrafted, had very low expectations going into 2022, which is why he went undrafted. However, he did finish the season in the leagues that we play in. The scoring settings are very similar. He finished the season as quarterback number 5. And even more importantly than finishing as QB number 5, Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf were both top 20 wide receivers. So with Geno, not only did he produce top 5 numbers, which helped teams make the playoffs and possibly win a championship, he elevated the play of those 2 wide receivers. I purposely avoided both of those guys in the draft, and we talked about this prior to the season. Yeah. I avoided both of those guys because I said the quarterback play, I can't count on it. Right. So the fact that he had a top 5 finish, the fact that he kept Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf not just relevant, but very relevant. I mean, if you think the top 24 are wide receiver 1 and 2s, right?
Right, yeah.
You know, because every team starts at least 2 wide receivers. So both of those guys were wide receiver number 1 or number 2s.
Right, yeah.
Okay, so that's pretty incredible.
Well, and to your point, I know I was pretty much writing off Tyler Lockett.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't want anything to do with him. Now, DK Metcalf, I targeted him in a couple of drafts, but Tyler Lockett, I was like, I don't want anything to do with him. Right.
Absolutely. So, I mean, and then not only that, you can't take away the fact. Now, granted, Rashad Penny, he got hurt.
Right.
Kenneth Walker was hurt, but he did play well for a couple games when he was in. But without a good passing game, I don't think that running game would have been as solid. I think there would have been more stacked boxes. Geno Smith kept those defenses honest. So, you know, anybody that was able to go out and get Geno Smith in free agency had to be pleased with that pickup. Right. Anybody that drafted Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, I think if they're being honest, would say that they were hopeful.
Yeah.
Well, for DK Metcalf, at least hopeful for that finish, but wouldn't have counted on it. I mean, I think in most of our leagues he was drafted really as a wide receiver 3.
Right.
But for both of those guys, I mean, Tyler Lockett was number 13 on the season.
Yeah, he was.
That's incredible.
He produced very well.
So Geno Smith is my first candidate for Hero Squad. My second quarterback on my list is Jared Goff. I mean, holy cow, who saw Detroit's offense being the number 2 offense in the NFC in overall scoring and number 5 in the NFL? And to put in perspective, I think they only scored like 2 or 3 points less than 5 points total. I know less than 5 points total on the season than the Buffalo Bills. Okay, so Jared Goff was another guy that did not get drafted in many leagues. The only leagues that I think he got drafted in were leagues that were either very, very deep or super flex leagues, right? So here's another guy that wasn't drafted in the fall. They had a top 5 offense in the NFL, number 2 in the NFC. Had that offense clicking on all cylinders. I mean, you can look at Amon-Ra St. Brown's numbers and just be like, man, that was fantastic. And we're going to talk about Amon-Ra St. Brown a lot tonight. Very near and dear to my heart what he did for me this season. But he wasn't the only one. I mean, we saw different wide receivers, different tight ends. I know TJ Hawkinson got traded, but when he had that huge 40-point plus output, that he was still with Detroit at the time.
Yeah.
When you start looking at what Jared Goff was able to do, there was no stacked boxes. Jamal Williams broke the Detroit record for touchdowns in a season.
He broke Barry Sanders' touchdown record. And my mom was actually explaining that to me. And for a split second, and this is how much I don't really follow Detroit's football. When she first said that to me, I was like, DeAndre Swift did that? I was like, no. It was either DeAndre Swift or Jamal Williams. And then I was like, yeah, Jamal Williams did that. But
Jamal Williams, 17, I think, rushing touchdowns this
17
year.
rushing touchdowns, but next year he's probably only going to have like 4 or 5.
But yeah,
just saying.
And that's very possible. I mean, as a DeAndre Swift person, I hope that's the case because I hope DeAndre Swift's usage grows. But I mean, come on, when they made that trade with the Rams, everybody thought that Detroit was going to be in the market in the draft this year for a quarterback, and I just don't think that's going to be necessary. He elevated the play of all those wide receivers, including Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Yeah.
And those defenses, the reason that Williams got all those touchdowns, he never had to run into a stacked box. I mean, those defenses had to respect the pass even within the 5-yard line. I mean, incredible. Quarterback number 3 on my list, Trevor Lawrence.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
He's on my list.
is he on your list?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're looking at, if you're a Jacksonville fan looking at this is what you were hoping for. You were hoping for that year 2 turnaround.
Mm-hmm.
So here's some interesting things here. I'm going to read again. I'm so sorry, folks. I'm going to read directly off this because I want to make sure I'm hitting all these points. He finished the season as quarterback number 7. He elevated the play of Christian Kirk, Zay Jones, and Evan Ingram. Holy smokes! And we're going to talk about Evan Ingram later too.
Yeah.
This is the expectation that we should have for the first overall pick in the NFL draft, which he was. But wow, it's never a given in the draft.
Right.
I mean, we've seen Zach Wilson. We'll talk about him later when I get to my not so good lists. He's on my naughty list.
Oh yeah.
But when you look at what he did, he was QB number 7. I don't think anybody had him pegged as a top 10 quarterback this year. Maybe another year or two. Give Doug Peterson a ton of credit. Massive respect for Doug Peterson. This is what people were hoping for. And here's the thing. He was quarterback number 7 this year. Next year he gets Calvin Ridley.
Yes.
I mean, let that sink in. If they can come back and save these weapons, holy smokes.
They were talking about that on Fantasy Sports Radio. And I actually forgot about that Calvin Ridley was going to be going to Jacksonville, that they made that trade. I forget what Jacksonville gave up to.
It was like a 5th-round pick.
It was practically nothing.
Yeah.
But yes, you get now. Granted, Ridley hasn't. By the time he'll have seen the football field, he hasn't played in a year and a half or so.
Yeah, at least.
But still, when you have Calvin Ridley and you also have Zay Jones and then
Christian Kirk, Evan Ingram,
everybody else.
Travis Etienne, who's more than capable of catching the ball out of the backfield.
Absolutely. Jacksonville's going to be making some waves.
I mean, and that defense actually played really... I mean, I'm not saying that they were a super stud defense. We also need to remember they played the Colts, they played Houston, they played some bad offenses this year. We're going to talk about the Colts a lot tonight, too.
Please do.
Adam and Theresa and I are going to come to you with another video. At least Adam and I are. I'm hoping we can get Theresa involved. This will be a separate video because obviously we need to keep these in bite-sized pieces so I'm not spending 3 weeks editing these and it takes YouTube 20 hours to upload them. But we are going to break down. Adam's going to break down the Colts. I'm going to break down the Bears. And hopefully we can get Theresa on board to break down Washington's offense. Their off-season.
Dan, I think all 3 of us can break down Washington and be pretty accurate on what they need to do to be successful.
Well, yeah, I mean, honestly, I think Washington's one piece away, but they keep screwing up that one piece. So
it's called the owner. I'm sorry, did I say that out loud?
Okay, 2 pieces, quarterback too. Carson Wentz.
That too,
Carson Wentz. I digress. So those are my 3 candidates for the quarterback. For running back, I'm going to start with Josh Jacobs. And the reason that Josh Jacobs is on my list, and we're going to, spoiler alert, folks, Josh Jacobs is on my top 5 for MVP of the fantasy football season. I'm telling you right now. And here's why. And again, I'm going to read directly off of this. So I wrote down expectations going into 2022 for Jacobs were mixed. During the preseason, we saw Jacobs' 5th-year option being declined by the Raiders, as well as the buzz surrounding Zamir White and the recently signed Amir Abdullah and Brandon Bolden pick up. We also saw Jacobs returning punts and declaring he would do whatever he could do for the team. So what did he do? All right, so listen to this, guys. After watching his fantasy football stock drop in the preseason, we didn't even know if he was going to be the RB1, right?
Everybody was thinking it was going to be Brandon Bolden because Josh McDaniels.
Because he had the history with him.
Exactly.
Yeah. What did he do? How about RB number 3 on the season? RB3. He had 4 games where he scored more than 30 points. He had that amazing 56.3 point beatdown that he put on Seattle in Week 12. And he scored, this is huge, folks, because I preach consistency. He scored double-digit points in 12 of his fantasy matchups this year. That is amazing consistency. So not only did he have those big games, he was consistent.
So, Dan, I've got a confession to make.
Okay.
When I do my rankings, I do my rankings in tiers. Like elite, good, not so good. Josh Jacobs, you want to know what the name of the tier was that I put him in?
Probably Skank Squad.
No.
Not that bad?
No. Well, draft this player if you don't care about winning.
Oh, ouch. Ouch.
I put him and Miles Sanders both in that tier. It was like number 8 or 9. 10 is Skank Squad, okay? Just so you know,
Yeah.
10 is Skank Squad.
So not that bad, but pretty low.
8, 9, I don't have it in front of me, but I think he was in like 8 or 9. I stayed away from him in every single draft.
Yeah.
I'll admit, I was wrong.
I did too. I had him on my do not draft list. I had 0 shares of him this year.
Well, when they declined his 5th-year option, I think that pretty much the league tells you stuff without actually telling you stuff.
Right.
And you saw that, and we're like, you know what? I'm just going to gravitate another direction.
Right, and rightfully so. And if you did that, you had logic behind you. But I think essentially what that did is that just pissed him off. And now he knows he's out there playing for a contract. So
yeah. Do you by chance know off the top of your head how many touchdowns he had?
I don't know off the top of my head, but I will say he was drafted in round 5 was the earliest he was taken in our redraft leagues. Round 5.
You're correct, yeah.
And I wrote that down. Yeah, that's one of my notes. So yeah, I mean he was drafted in round 5. He ended up definitely as an RB1 on his team because he was the RB number 3 overall. So that's incredible. So Josh Jacobs is one of my nominations. Ramondre Stevenson is the second running back I would like to nominate. And Adam, if you could, pat me on the back. Okay, now turn around and let me pat you on the back.
Yeah, because I dropped him.
But okay, in my defense, at the time I didn't think he was doing all that great.
Mm-hmm.
And he really didn't help anybody out in the playoffs. Correct me if I'm wrong. In the weekend, in the week 15, 16, 17 scorings.
Yeah, I'd have to go out and...
He really didn't do that much.
Yep.
In the season, if you had Ramondre Stevenson, you were feeling great.
If you had him, at least you got to the playoffs.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
So here's my notes on Stevenson. So the buzz surrounding Stevenson started in the preseason. In fact, go back to my early videos where I actually talk about him being one of my top sleepers of the year. And you and I talked about that. He was on your sleeper list too, which is why you got him in one league before me because you knew I was going to take him if you didn't.
Right. I took him and then I dropped him.
Yep. All right. Excuse me. So, weeks 1 and 2, he started the season behind Damon Harris on the depth chart. But after that, so starting in week 3, Ramondre Stevenson seized control of New England's backfield. He went over 20 points in 6 of his matchups, including double-digit points. Get this, 11 weeks in a row he scored double-digit points.
Yeah.
That is the perfect example of consistency. And not only that, he was resilient. He played in all those games, and I want you to think about that horrible injury. I mean, honestly, after he hurt his ankle, I posted a video of his ankle injury on one of our videos earlier this year. On one of the weekly breakdowns.
It was painful.
Next week he comes out, he scores double-digit points, rushes for over 100 yards, like nothing happened. So essentially, Ramondre finished the season as RB number 8. He was drafted in round 9 in most of our leagues, round 8 or 9. Not bad. Top 10 finish at his position for a guy that was drafted not in the mid rounds, but now we're looking at the late rounds. Right. Not bad. My RB3 that's made my list is Tony Pollard. Adam, pat me on the back. Called that one. I'm not going to get into the breakdown on Tony Pollard because if you own shares of him, you already know. But he finished the season overall as RB number 9. RB 9 for a guy that wasn't even RB1 on his team. And I was very high on Tony Pollard. I drafted him in the Dynasty League. I drafted him in every single league that I could possibly get him. The only league I didn't take him in was your guys' Ohio League.
Right.
And that's because I already had 5 running backs, and it's like, man, I don't know if I should take a 6th.
Yeah.
But I tell you, folks, in their league, I'm always decimated by injuries at the running back position. This year was no difference.
I need to stay away from the players you draft in her league.
Well, because every year this happens, but you're screwed because your guys' live draft is the last live draft of the season for me. So, all right, so those are my 3 nominations for running backs. My first nomination for wide receiver is Amon-Ra St. Brown. Huge man crush for me on Amon-Ra St. Brown. So
I'll have to admit, I have 0 shares of him. 0.
So, funny story, Jordan, who has been on this channel with us, go back to one of the earlier fireside chats, take a look at that. Jordan, who has been on the show with us, had him in our Dynasty League and did not contract him. And he was my first round draft pick in the Dynasty League. And Jordan's argument, and I get where he was coming from, he had logic behind it. And again, as long as you're using logic for the decision that you're making, I've got no problem with it. If it's wrong, it's wrong.
Right.
At least you've thought it out. His thing was he had no faith in Jared Goff. Well, I've already talked about Jared Goff.
I'm right there with him.
Right.
I have zero faith in Jared Goff.
Right, but I mean,
I know the numbers speak for themselves.
Yep.
I get it. But
Goff was quarterback number 8. Sometimes, and we've seen this before, sometimes the fit just isn't right. He was never a fit for what Sean McVay wanted to do on offense.
Right.
But he still led that team to a Super Bowl, led them to the playoffs.
Right.
Did he win it? No. It took Stafford to get over that hump for them, so that was a good trade. But Amon-Ra St. Brown.
On a side note, though, look at what the Rams did this year.
Right.
I mean, Stafford got hurt, Aaron Donald got hurt, Cooper Kupp got hurt. The Rams won the Super Bowl last year, but you want to talk about a fall from grace.
What were they, 3-14 this year?
They
Or
won
4-13?
like 4 or 5 games. That was it.
Yeah, I don't even think they won 5.
Now, granted, I don't think any of it falls on Sean McVay. We can have that on another chat or anything like that. But it was just like, holy cow! You win a Super Bowl. You want to talk about a Super Bowl hangover? Usually, the Super Bowl hangover comes from the team that loses the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Well, last I looked, the Bengals are actually back in the Super Bowl. The Rams are sitting at home right now.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's hope they're back in the Super Bowl. They're definitely in the playoffs.
The Bengals are back in the playoffs. That's what I meant to say.
I just can't let that go without teasing you. So, anyways, going back to Amon-Ra St. Brown. So here's the stat line: 106 receptions on 146 targets, 1,161 yards, 6 touchdowns, and he actually missed some time due to injuries. Imagine what it could have been without that. I mean, overall, he was drafted in the redraft leagues, not the Dynasty League. I told you guys I took him in the first round of the Dynasty League, but that draft's different. Overall, he was drafted in round 6 or 7 in most of our redraft leagues. He wound up the season as wide receiver number 7, and that's having missed some time. My second wide receiver on this list is none other than Tyler Lockett, who we talked about.
Yeah.
The thing with Tyler Lockett is every year I avoid him because he's a solid guy, but I'm always looking for that upside,
And
right?
he's also, sometimes he gets injured. He's
He does.
Injury risk sometimes.
Yeah.
He was injured
Yeah. Yeah. So, here's my notes on him. Year in and year out, Lockett is one of the most overlooked fantasy wide receivers. This year was no exception.
Mm-hmm.
His fantasy stock was held down by reports that Geno Smith was going to be a starting quarterback. However, Geno played lights out, and Lockett once again proved his naysayers wrong. He finished the season as wide receiver number 13.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
He finished better than DK Metcalf, didn't he?
He did.
How many touchdowns did he end up?
I'm not sure. But both Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf were top 18 18. DK was number 18 because I knew they were both top 18. If he's 13, DK. Duh. Sorry guys, my brain's a little fuzzy.
Well, that's the thing with Geno Smith. He focuses mostly on 2 wide receivers. That's one thing they were talking about the other day on the radio, that Smith can support 2 wide receivers, but when you get outside of those 2 targets, like Noah Fant, inconsistent. Marquise Goodwin, inconsistent. It's Tyler Lockett. It was the Tyler Lockett and the DK Metcalf show, pretty much.
Yep, absolutely. My third wide receiver on my list. This one's going to sound funny because overall he was wide receiver. What was he, number 39 or something like 36? So the next guy on my list was wide receiver number 36. You say, well, why is he on the hero squad? All right, so my third wide receiver on this list is Josh Palmer, and here's why. Josh Palmer.
Oh.
So
Yes.
my notes. What?
Josh Palmer.
Chargers.
Yeah.
So my notes on this: a curious addition to this list. As fantasy players who relied on him was once both Keenan Allen and Mike Williams went down.
Mm-hmm.
While his overall season totals do not look staggering, he finished wide receiver number 36, and the weeks that he was called on, he absolutely crushed at carrying teams that had him when they needed it the most. I know my brother Nathan had him in the New Rensselaer League.
Yeah.
And he had him as a handcuff because both Keenan Allen and Mike Williams were down. Josh Palmer was putting up 15 to 25 points a week during that stretch.
He was, yeah.
So I know this seems strange, but for those teams that were so hurt by injuries, especially to the Chargers wide receivers, Josh Palmer won Nathan a matchup.
He did.
And when you can look at one player and say, okay, I literally won because of this one guy.
Yeah.
Every victory matters. There's only 14 to 15 regular season weeks. Every victory matters.
Well, and they're probably going to be using him quite a bit this coming weekend.
Yeah, because Mike Williams has a
Mike
broken
Williams,
back.
he's got a broken. He literally has a broken back.
Yep, that's crazy. So Josh Palmer, I know it's a curious addition. I admit that, but he's only on this list because of a 2 to 3 game, maybe 4 game at most stretch. But wow, what a stretch that was when people needed it the most. So, all right, tight ends. So remember in the beginning I said that these are the guys that weren't drafted real high? Here's the one exception to the rule. My tight end number 1 for my hero squad is Travis Kelce. And I know that seems like a no-brainer, but let me explain something here real quick. Number 1, tight end is a position that's at a premium because there's so few good tight ends.
And it's also a dumpster fire at times.
It can be a complete dumpster fire. But what Travis Kelce did this year, I want to put this in perspective. He wasn't just tight end 1 on the season. In the PPR leagues that we play in, he outscored TJ Hawkinson, who is tight end number 2, by a staggering 100 points. So to me, anytime you are the number 1 at your position and you have outscored the number 2 by 100 points, I don't care who you are, you're going on my hero squad.
Yeah.
Travis Kelce, thank you for what you did for me in Dynasty. Adam, congratulations to you for winning that title. Kelce, thank you for helping me get there. Okay? Tight end number 2 on my list is Evan Ingram. Because he was tight end number 5.
Yeah.
And who saw that coming?
I didn't.
Right? Let's just listen. Crowd, who had Evan Ingram finish the year as the top 5?
Insert crickets sound right here.
Look at my notes.
Yeah.
I hear crickets, literally.
Yeah.
Hey, welcome to your career resurgence, Evan Ingram. I think finally we're starting to see what you're capable of. How nice is it to be paired with a quarterback that actually values you and targets you? Trevor Lawrence, shout out, buddy. Evan Ingram, shout out. Top 5 finish. I didn't see it coming. I had 0 socks.
I
don't think he got drafted in any of our leagues.
Nope.
So to go from completely undrafted to a top 5 finish.
This is one of those instances. See, I'm one of those guys that doesn't really make a whole lot of trades. I like to pick up guys on waivers.
Yep, waivers for agency.
I mean, Evan Ingram, I'm pretty sure was available in a whole bunch of leagues at the beginning of the season.
100% of leagues.
If you picked him up and you started him all the way up to now, you're feeling pretty good right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And how many people was that out there that did that?
Not I.
Yeah.
Not I.
Nobody that's honest would admit to that, so. All right.
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ingram, before he played for the Jaguars, just played for the Giants, right?
That's right.
And then all he did, he was just an injury risk, pretty much.
Yeah.
He was always injured.
And when he was out there, he never did much.
I didn't want anything to do with him.
No.
And now he's a top 5 tight end.
Right. And when he came into the league, we were excited about him, but it never materialized.
Nope.
Never.
Nope.
My tight end number 3 is TJ Hawkinson. And, he was so fascinating. He came in as tight end number 2. Yep. I had him in the New Rensselaer League that I won the title in. Did you have him?
I did. I had him in the league that I was trying the belt that you've seen me in all the videos.
Yeah.
I have him in that league. I'll admit I lost the belt. I lost in the playoffs. I lost in the first round.
But you made the playoffs.
I made the playoffs. Now the thing is though, my tight end 1, believe it or not, was Mark Andrews. I drafted him. My tight end 2 was TJ Hawkinson. I didn't really start TJ Hawkinson until he got traded to the Vikings. Mm-hmm. That one big game he had with Detroit where he had like
46 points.
46 points. You know where he was?
On your bench?
On my bench! He was on my bench! Now, granted, I think that week I still won my matchup, but...
I started him that week. That was the week that Amon-Ra St. Brown was hurt. And I was like,
correct,
they got to target somebody, and that offense seems to be prolific.
But TJ Hawkinson is one of my heroes. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, he also had a big game against Indianapolis, I believe it was, when they came back from being down 75-0. Oh, that was a bad day for me. But Hawkinson, now I think he is on the right team. I think he is with the right system. I think he has the right quarterback. I think he has the right coach.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing against Dan Campbell, but I think now that he's with Minnesota, in terms from a fantasy perspective, you will be seeing TJ Hawkinson until he retires. As long as he stays with Minnesota, as long as he has Kirk Cousins as his quarterback, he will be a top 5 tight end.
Yeah, because when you look at Dan Campbell, not that they didn't use him as a wide receiver, his big, huge point outburst was with Detroit. But Dan Campbell is known for that ankle-biting mentality, that run, that pound. So he was asked to maybe be a pass or a run blocker for Detroit more than he'll be asked to do that for them.
And
for the Minnesota Vikings.
Kirk Cousins is going to throw him the ball.
Right.
All the time.
To me, what really stands out about Hawkinson winding up as tight end number 2, like I thought he was going to be a top 5 tight end. That's why I drafted him. Mm-hmm. Did I think he was going to be number 2? I thought the possibility was there for it when he was with Detroit.
I think everybody pretty much thought tight end number 2 was going to be Mark Andrews.
I mean, I honestly did too, but you never know with injuries.
I drafted him.
I was more worried about Kelsey's durability with him getting older than I was Andrews. But here's, to me, what makes it even more impressive is not only did he finish as tight end number 2, he played on 2 different teams, meaning he had to learn a new offense mid-season and still turned in those numbers. So, TJ Hawkinson, salute, you're on my list of heroes, bud.
Yep.
All right, before I announce my winner, who do you guys want to add?
Well, one guy that I do definitely want to add, and I'm surprised you didn't mention
we'll
him.
get to him. I know who you're going to say. We'll get to him.
Who am I going to say?
It's got to be Fields.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll get to him.
I did have him on my hero squad. I did have him starting in the league where I was trying to defend my my championship belt. Now, granted, he did have some issues towards the end of the season, but towards the middle of the season, so in the league that I was trying to defend my belt in, I think I told you who I drafted as my quarterback.
You did, but I can't remember.
Russell Wilson.
Oh, that's why I can't remember it.
Yeah, exactly. So I ended up dropping Russell Wilson, but I picked up Geno Smith, and I picked up Justin Fields. Now, the problem was trying to figure out who to start each and every different week. But even though Justin Fields, during the playoffs, didn't perform the way fantasy managers would have liked, I think next year, provided your Bears, who now have the number 1 overall pick, you can thank my Colts for that. You can thank my Colts for that.
But you got to remember, the Colts are my second favorite team.
Correct. Now, the question is, what are they going to do with it? You need a receiver in the worst way imaginable.
Oh, we are going to talk about Justin Fields. We're going to talk about the Bears wide receivers. I'm going to explain why he's not on this list here in a little bit.
But
we'll get to all that.
I will have to say, Justin Fields, even though I started him only maybe 2 or 3 different times, he is on my hero squad, and you are going to see great things from him later on down the road. Okay,
who else you got?
Well, I agree with you 100% with TJ Hawkinson.
Okay, so he's on your list too?
He's on my list as well.
Okay.
I have Geno Smith, but it's for a completely different fantasy category.
Okay.
For a completely different category.
Okay, so we'll let that go.
Yep.
Anybody else you want to add to the list?
Well, I do have my fantasy MVPs, but I think that'll be later on.
That's its own category?
That's its own category.
You bet. That's like winning the Oscar.
Yeah.
So we'll save that. That'll be the last video that we produce in the series. Teresa, you got anybody to add to the list?
Christian Kirk.
We're going to get to him here in a little bit, too. Christian Kirk, yeah. I mean, you want to extrapolate on that a little bit?
Well, what? I drafted him in like the 5th, 6th, 7th round, 8th round.
I had 0
and I
shares of
think he actually had me win a couple weeks.
He did.
Yeah.
And if you remember, so I took Adam and Teresa with me to this camp that we go to every year. And literally every single evening we went up to the lodge and we did fantasy football mock drafts.
We did a lot of drafts.
Adam, you didn't have a whole lot of faith in Christian Kirk, but Teresa and I did. And for me, it was always trying to gauge where I could get him, and I did not get him in any of my leagues. Thank you very much. I told you at the draft, I was like, yeah, that's a good pick. But what I really meant was,
Pretty much.
Hey, now we're PG.
No, we went to PG-13 the last time we got together. We blew past that last time when we
Yes,
did
you are correct.
when we did our calls and our presents. All right, anybody else?
Reception. So
All right, well we'll
I was
finish.
trying to look at my team to see, but I knew Christian Kirk was absolutely hands down.
Yeah,
Um,
had just a marvelous season. If you're a Jacksonville fan, you've got to be ecstatic.
and did you say Trevor Lawrence? You said Trevor
I
Lawrence.
did,
I said,
yeah.
and I agreed with you on that because
Yep.
I think I picked him up off waivers because I had Russell Wilson
Ooh.
Who we're going to talk about a lot. So-
and Aaron Rodgers.
Oh. Ouch. Ouch.
Yeah, we're going to zoom in on that when I do the video. Slow motion. Aaron who?
Yeah.
You done did what, Aaron?
You done messed
Nothing.
up, Ron.
Aaron Rodgers did nothing. Hey, by the way, just so everybody knows, Joe, who's been on this show, we had a bet before the season started about Aaron Rodgers' numbers, and I won. Joe, I got to get you $40 for your high score in Dynasty, but you owe me a 6-pack because I won that bet.
Yeah.
So before I announce my winner, my pick, and you guys announce your picks for Hero of the Year, do you have any other candidates you want to throw out there?
No.
I was thinking I had a running back.
Well, let's pull your team up here, and we'll just take a look
Yeah,
real quick.
because
Was this which league would this have been in?
I think probably New Rensselaer.
Oh, the league I won the title in. That's the one. Okay. All right. Well, let's go out here and just take a look at your. Let's just go out here and take a look at your roster
And I
here.
think it was somebody that I ended up picking up off
Yeah.
waivers. Oh God.
Connor Mixon.
No, it wasn't Connor or Mixon.
Montgomery, Walker. Oh, Damian Pierce.
No.
Okay,
No,
so not that
way
league.
he would have been on.
Well, no. I think I dropped him.
While you're doing that, I want to use the bathroom.
We're still filming. You
Oh.
sit right here.
Okay.
You sit. Well, I'm not editing that out. That's going to go on the blooper reel for
I do
2023.
that.
He broke the seal, folks. I'm sorry.
But
McKinnon. Jared
yes, Jarek McKinnon.
McKinnon. Okay.
He
So
helped me win. And is that my home league? Is that
yeah,
his-
that's the whole
Yep,
thing.
and I made it to the playoffs because of him.
What a run! So, folks, if you're back here with us, Teresa's nominated Jarek McKinnon. What a run he had at the end of the season. So week 13, 14 points. 14, 32.4. 15, 34.2. 16, 12.8. And 17, 22.6 points. That is just a tremendous run when people needed him right there in the clutch to seal the playoff spot at the end of the season and then go into the playoffs strong. Yeah, Jarek McKinnon helped a lot of folks out. So, yeah, he deserves a Hero Squad nomination as well.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, in that league, I had a good run at the beginning. I was like 5-0, and then I just lost. I had some injuries, just things didn't go right. I ended up 4th in that league. That league.
That's a highly competitive
This
league with
league,
a
oh
lot
my-
of experience. I mean,
yeah.
there's probably, and I'm not exaggerating, folks, between the number of leagues that each player plays in, and it's only, a 10 to
It's
12.
a 10. This year was 10 person.
10 to
Last
12,
year it was
depending
12.
upon the year. In any given year, if you combine the number of years that we've played fantasy football with the number of leagues that we've been in, you're probably looking at 200 to 250 years of overall experience. Now, I know, I've been playing since 2008, but I've been playing in multiple leagues. So you take how many years you've been playing by how many leagues that you're in to get that number. But yeah, just a ton of fantasy football experience. So John Wilson, who I've talked about on the show quite a bit, he came home for Christmas, got stranded up in Chicago on Christmas Eve, actually the night before, with the blizzard that we had here in the Northwest Indiana area. And we were coming back. I went up to pick him up, bring him home to make sure he made it home for Christmas. And I was talking to him about that league. I'll try to get the clip. No promises. I'll try to get that clip here on this video where we're going down I-65 and I'm talking about my bad luck in your league and I lose control of the truck and we're fishtailing going down I-65. It's so funny. John Wilson freaks out. I'm just like, hold on. All right, we got it. Let's go back to talking fantasy football.
Did he start screaming like a little girl?
Who did?
Wilson?
I'll show you the video. I'll try to get it on here so everybody can see it. It's hilarious.
I drafted Javonte Williams, who's out for the season. I drafted Breece Hall, who's out for the season. I drafted Michael Thomas, who's out for the season. I drafted Jonathan Taylor, who's not out for the season, but didn't perform. Whoa! Hold on. You're good. Got it.
To you, Wilson. Shout out to you.
Yes, for sure, Wilson. Shout out, man. All right, so my winner, the biggest hero to me of the Fantasy 2022 season, drum roll please, Geno Smith. And here, did I?
You did, well, I have my number 2.
Okay. Here's why. Geno Smith, the top 5 finish alone is pretty awesome and helped a lot of teams. But when I look at this award, I'm looking at the running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends, and really those, I don't want to say they're individual numbers, but Geno Smith not only helped himself, he helped at least 2 other players, and if you look deeper into it, possibly 4 or 5. And those players help people win leagues. So Geno Smith, man, what a season. I hope you get your new contract. You absolutely have earned it. You deserve it. Huge kudos to you for sticking with your NFL career, sticking with your dream, making this happen. I know draft night for you was tough. Originally, you were supposed to be a first-round pick. Your name didn't get called until later. But, man, huge kudos to you. Geno Smith, you are my 2022 Fantasy Hero Player of the Year.
I would have to say, well, Geno Smith, I dropped Russell Wilson. Geno Smith was my next quarterback that I picked up. And I ended up going to the playoffs in that league that I ended up losing my belt in, but he at least kept me competitive. My hero would have to be, drumroll please, TJ Hawkinson. And I say TJ Hawkinson mainly because he came through when I needed him the most. He spent a lot of time on my bench, even when he was with Detroit, and he had that big game against when he was with Detroit, and he had like 43 fantasy points. He was on my bench, but my tight end 1 in this particular league was Mark Andrews. He started going downhill after Lamar Jackson got hurt. I had TJ Hawkinson right there on my bench. I actually thought about trading him after he had that big game with Detroit. Thankfully, I didn't, and I started him in the playoffs. Unfortunately, I lost, but at least he kept me in the matchup, at least.
Right.
So he's got to be my hero.
There you go. Teresa, do you agree with one of us, or do you have your own?
I think for me, my hero was Jerick McKinnon.
Okay.
Because at one point in my league, I don't think I would have made it into the playoffs if I hadn't picked him up off waivers and put him in.
Yeah.
Yep.
He helped me win matchups to stay afloat in the playoffs.
Yep.
To make it to the playoffs.
Yeah. Makes perfect sense. And
Yeah.
and those are the players that we tend to remember fondly. The players that helped you get there and then help you seal the deal if you win that title. So kudos to all 3 of these guys, Geno Smith, TJ Hawkinson, Jerick McKinnon. Kudos to you guys. You are our NFL fantasy football player heroes of 2022.
Yep.
All right, folks. We're going to end the video here because I want to keep each one of these categories into its own video, or maybe combine 2 smaller ones into one video. Keep these in bite-sized pieces so they don't become boring. And also for the editing and uploading process, just being honest. Do us a favor, go down to the comment section, let us know who you would nominate as your hero candidates and who your hero would be. But most importantly, tell us why. Defend your position. We want to hear your thoughts on the matter. All right, anything else for this video?
Nope.
All right. Hey, stay tuned. We're going to have a lot of videos because when we get together, this is what we do. All right, folks, until next time.
See ya.